You are listening
You are listening
You're listening to
to Not
to Not Elsewhere.
Not Elsewhere
Elsewhere
Classified.
Classified.
And so I went to go work for her. And within a few months of working with her, she had had a health scare and she put the business up for sale. And I was okay, put the business up for sale. So she had some people come in and she had talked to them about purchasing the business. And I was going to go with the flow. And she just didn't mesh with anybody enough to want to give this business over.
Yeah.
So she sat me down and said, look, I see something in you. And I think you do have an entrepreneurial head. And I think that you can definitely handle this. And I'm going to mentor you, but I want to
interesting.
finance the business for you. I want to. So for 6 months, she came every Friday. She helped me do payroll. She helped me run all my management reports, all the KPIs for the doctors, how to talk to them, do the transition in company, really just held my hand.
Good.
And I got it.
You got the business.
Business, but I also got that management component of it and the entrepreneurial. I've been a manager before and I've managed people, but
Right.
never with. It's different when these are your policies and procedures now.
Ah, okay.
It's very different. So so she mentored me and it was amazing. And I ran the business for 17 years and had lots of great people come and work for me and lots of great clients. And there was just another one of those moments that everything seemed to align properly and it worked well.
No, right. And the same process applies. You ask questions.
Mm-hmm.
You add the added aspect of mentoring.
Yes.
Right. It's not that you were doing it by yourself. That's why I was wondering, did you just acquire it and, again, ask yourself a bunch of questions and then you got it and then it became successful, but then you came in with the insertion of the mentoring aspect.
Yes. And now over those years, I dabbled a little bit in other entrepreneurial opportunities.
Yeah.
So I did buy a few companies and they did very well. And as soon as they were doing well, and I sold them.
Oh, okay.
So I was able to do that as well. And then when I sold my company, I sold it. It's still operating. I still consult for it.
Oh, good.
I had to make a choice in life.
Yeah.
It was consuming my life at that point, and it was
Right.
just managing. And I wanted to do more. I wanted to get back with people. Like we had been talking earlier, I thrive on teaching and being presenting and being with the audience
Mm-hmm.
and connecting with people. And that's something that I got so far away from running a business that it was time. It was time.
Right. It's like you got it, right?
Yeah.
But so I think that did you, for all of those businesses that you acquired, were they businesses that weren't doing well, or they were at a certain point and you wanted to make them better?
Yes, there were 5 in total. 2 of them were from the ground up. And 3 of them, I had purchased them when they were not doing too great, but they had great customer lists and they had good bones. And I knew that I could come in and some of them were for things that I had, like I bought a lawn service.
Wow.
I don't even cut my own grass, right? But going in South Florida, so that the lawn service is going to do well, and with a little bit of marketing and with the right people in place and setting some standards and putting policies in place, this is the expectation. I want this and this done, and then putting the person in place to manage all those people, then it was doing great. And when I got a relatively healthy client list and the equipment was all paid off and everything, that was the time to sell it. And it did very well. It sold well.
Wow.
So,
Okay. So you're like it's
it was an investment. It was strictly
you're like the flip. You're basically
I flipped them.
Yeah, you flip them. So
Yeah.
you would get in there, you do all of the renovations, and then when they look nice and sparkly,
right? That's right.
Adios.
And it's doing well. Yeah.
Yeah, you pocket the amount, right? Oh, that's nice.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's nice. So from your so as I guess from your building company and multiple companies, right? And you mentioned this before, where I guess you don't want to have your hands on the wheel of the business, because each and every, I'm sure. Well, did you did you at some point in time own, how many businesses at one time did you own? Did you own all five or multiple at one time, or were
No.
they in different
The
segments?
I think the most I ever had was 3 at one time,
Oh, geez.
but one coming in and one going out
Okay.
while I had the other ones going. The billing company was my solid. That's where I was every day. But the
Right.
other ones, they were coming in and they were going out. Or I think I had 2 other ones at one time that were operating. But I'm a huge fan of, I don't want to say rules because that sounds so rigid.
That's what I was going to ask.
But guidelines, policy and procedures. I think when people know what your expectation is,
Yeah.
then they have a goal they can meet.
Mm.
Like even my kids, they were like, "Oh, you're always, you're driving me to do something," or I put staff members in and say, "What's your next quarter goal? Where are you going to be next quarter? What do you see for yourself?" And but I think that we all have to, but we have to. There has to be some standard in place, right? We just can't. When you don't have anything, that's where chaos lives.
Yeah.
I think so.
The word I wanted to say was parameters. Like they just set parameters for, I guess the question was, the reason why I asked that is like, how many businesses did you have at one time? So you say about 2 to 3, right? And did you set a parameter rule that, you can only hold 2 to 3 at the same time, or it just so happens that they were
it just so happened. It just so happened that way. And those were fun years when all of that was happening. So but I had to go in and put, everything had policy procedures. There was expectations from everybody. Even, for example, the lawn service, like there was an expectation of how everything needed to be done. There was a checklist. Like when you unload your equipment and you start, cutting, or you start weed eating, or whatever it was that they did first, there was a procedure for it and you checked it off. And at the end of the day, there was a check off for everyone. My husband is an air conditioning man, and he had a couple of air conditioning companies. One of them didn't do very well because he had a bad business partner. And, I think 95% of what you do in life depends on who you pair yourself with, either professionally or romantically. It goes south quickly. But, I remember same thing there. I first thing that I recommended was that they implement those check boxes. So this is what we do every day. This is how you do an installation, or this is how you cut the grass, or this is how you whatever. And in the billing company, it was, this is how you enter a claim. Check, check, check. This is how you check it against the NCCI, or check the modifier, check. So even now, I'm a huge component of checklists and tools, audit tools. When I'm looking at documentation, when I'm looking at anything, I have to see certain things. So, and it's nice because other people that come in, these are the expectations. Here's the rules. Here's the guides. Here's the tools that you can use them. And most of the time we're successful. Don't use them, and that's where we start to see problems. So.
That's right. No, I know this is a medical billing, HIM coding podcast, but I'm really interested in that lawn part. Not that I want to run one, but I'm just a very simple question. Were there any regulations that you had to follow, I guess, in running a lawn business? Because I here's the thing.
No, I just had to have a license. I had a city and a county license, and
just a license.
Not general liability insurance. That was it.
It wasn't like okay, you need to, do things at a certain amount of time or follow.
Oh well, yeah. I think you couldn't do it before 8 a.m. or 7 a.m. something like that, and you couldn't do it after a certain time in the evening. But otherwise, and I tried to stay away from the weekends because we got more traffic from code enforcement looking for weekend warriors without license and things like that.
Oh, wow.
So you had to, so there was where it's a Monday through Friday thing. We do it from 8 in the morning to 5 in the afternoon. And it takes this long to cut the grass. It takes this long to weed eat. So you should be able to do 10 lawns a day and with your checklist. And if I or the manager that I had at the time, the foreman, if that person goes to that house and all things aren't done, or if I got a phone call and all things weren't done, then we have a problem. So, it worked easier that way. When you have to rely on people to be independent, you do have to have some checks and balances in place.
Yeah.
It made it work. And there is a very efficient way to cut your grass.
Right. No, that's what I'm saying. Like, I'm sure there's a parallel with lawn mowing services with anything, right? And so the reason why I asked that, because one of the things that I work over here, right? And the one thing that I always watch is people as a guy who I think he's in, what's his name? His name is Al Blades. He's in the Vero Beach area, I
Oh,
think.
no kidding.
Yeah. And he does lawns all day, right? He picks one day out of the week. Because I look at the lawns, I'm like, I think this is Port St. Lucie, I think, because the way it looks like, but I know it's Florida. So he does admit it's Florida. I think he says Lee County, and then he mentioned Vero Beach. But anyways, I actually watched that as some form of therapy while I'm working, right? Some form of, there's something to let the something I need to listen to.
For Christmas, Brian. Definitely a lawnmower ornament. Yeah.
Yeah. He would do the lawn. I think, I don't know. He would pick like one of those, the ones for code enforcement, for example. The lawn is too high, and he would just do it for free, just to help out the community. And he would film it, of course, to fund through the YouTube channel. And he would just, all I would hear is right. I'm just like, okay, I'm just auditing away. So I was very interested.
Soothing about that white noise in the background.
Exactly. Yeah. No, right. And that's what I've been getting into, especially with sleep. I would actually play some weird podcasts, some guy mumbling and just talking nonsense, and that just would put me to sleep. Another one is, what's it called? Anything with rain is interesting. There's something called binaural waves or something like that. There's a certain wave frequency that puts you to sleep, and I'm like, okay, well,
wow, I didn't know that. I knew that there was some sound frequencies that you lose as you get older, because my kids are always coming up with these apps, and they're like, hey, and everybody in the room is laughing, and I can't hear it. So I've reached that age, I guess.
Oh,
I wasn't going to talk about age because Stacey talked way too much about age.
See, I notice I haven't talked about age.
I know.
I haven't talked about what our technology was like back then.
Thank you. Yes, I think she kind of ran that one over a few times.
Yeah. No, we'll try to keep it different. So so going back to, I don't want to talk about lawn business, but I was very interested in that. But so from the point in where I guess you sold all of your businesses, right? And then you wanted to transition into teaching. What was that process like? Or what did it lead into your company, Sterling Global Solutions, or what was it? What happened when you sold your companies off? I think that's where I wanted to get at.
So some of the selling the companies off also had to do with selling a husband off. So, when you offload a husband, you have to offload some of your assets as well.
Yeah.
And so that happened. And so then I was like, well, okay, what am I going to do? I kept the billing company for many years after I lost the husband. And he didn't pass away. I really just left him on the corner. Here, out of the car, bye, it's over. Anyway, so I'm managing everyone. It became the chore, and I just didn't want to do the chore anymore. So we had a new college that had opened up in my area. It was a private college, Virginia College. It was part of the what was the name of the company? So some parent company anyway. They had a bunch of Fortis, and they had a bunch of other companies there.
Right.
And they put an ad out, and they were looking for instructors. And I thought this would be kind of a wonderful way for me to scratch my itch of being with people and teaching and really getting where I wanted to be. So that was wonderful, except I'm not a fan of private colleges like those tech colleges. They were selling a certificate, a diploma for $40,000.
Yeah.
Didn't even include the certification. And I was like, well, okay, no, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
So I had an opportunity to go work with an amazing consultant firm down south in Delray. And I was driving back and forth from Port St. Lucie every day in Delray. And it was an amazing opportunity. I learned a lot. Again, I'm always a student, so I'm always watching and learning these things. And but what they needed me to do was I wanted to do more. And
Mm.
so the only way that I was going to be able to do more was to leave that company and then start my own thing again. And I
Okay.
have that entrepreneurial mind.
Right.
So it's hard to go and be an employee when you see the future. No, I'm not a psychic or anything, but you see the potential
There you
that
go.
something has.
Mm.
And but that wasn't what they needed me. They needed me to in another capacity.
Yeah, I got you.
So yeah, I just had to,
Go your own path.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So with this path, like what are you do? I guess let me ask you this question. What is Sterling Global Solutions do? What is it all about? You have a new office there, I see.
Yes, yes, we just got a new building, and there's some echo because I don't even have anything hung up yet. Like
Yeah.
literally, we've been moving in, and I have a bare desk right now. This is really nice because it won't look like this in a few days.
Uh,
And um, anyway, so starting Global Solutions, and we do a little bit of everything. I do a lot of education right now, which is what I really love to
right.
do. And I've had the joy of working with AHIMA, AAPC,
Good.
some of the other networks that are out there, associations, societies that are out there. So I've done a lot of work with them, either state societies or just private societies. I think I mentioned earlier, I speak a lot for the American Portable Diagnostic Association.
Mm.
Who knew that even portable diagnostics have their own association, and they need
Yes.
consultants, and they need people to help guide those who are actively working in the industry there. So
Mm.
that was a wonderful opportunity. And I have a background in compliance. So I've had
Good.
an opportunity to work with a lot of attorneys on bad actors, maybe is a good way to say it. Um, and I always have to go back to like, oh, if you had just read the LCD or the NCD, or if you just, anyway, so I've done some of that work with attorneys firms there, and
Interesting.
just some compliance work. So that's really been amazing. And now we've expanded so much over the last year. I know that COVID was supposed to be a down year for everybody, and it was for so many people. And
Yeah.
not that I sympathize so much, but for us with telehealth,
Yeah.
and I've been involved in telehealth for years, way
Mm.
before it was cool. And now I get to really do some consulting on telehealth and how that's working, and help a lot of practices that were implemented that last year. It was a really great year for me for that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And so now we've expanded to the point where we needed to have our own building. It's no longer a work from home office kind of situation.
Amazing.
And yeah, I'm thrilled.
Yeah. I think the last I try to check out which we'll talk about, your podcast. You were
Mhm.
doing it at your dining room table. I think you had mentioned that, right?
And I was miserable, and I didn't mean to be such a whiny, but yeah, but you do what you have to do, right?
Right.
So yeah, we moved out of the office and moved to the dining room table. We were there almost 3 months.
Wow.
Oh wow, yeah. So I'm so happy to be out of there. It was nice, good thing we could, but yeah. And now I have that little coding with Christine Hall that I kind of do every 2 weeks. I try to do a
Yes.
little 30-minute just chat,
Yeah.
and say, hey, here's what's going on. Here's what happened in the final rule. Here's the highlights, or here's the highlight of the ICD-10 codes coming out,
Mm.
and read your guidelines. I'm just hardcore on that.
Yeah, no, I mean, how do you like the podcasting aspect? So that's what I wanted to know, because I know there's a lot of podcasts out there. You jumped on the train, right? And so
Yeah,
how's it going for you?
it's going great.
Yeah.
I love it. I have an amazing producer, and she is
Oh,
so
good.
motivational that I really don't have to do much of anything.
Nice.
I hate
Mhm.
to say that, but she handles everything for me, and she is just such a great motivation. She'll start at the beginning of the week, like, do we have everything ready? And here's what we're doing. And
Uh-huh.
look, there's so many people that are interested, Facebook, LinkedIn, and
Oh, good.
the motivation is nice as well. And I like to talk, so
Yeah. Yeah. Right.
the podcast fits nicely with me. It's another thing that I just kind of get. I have to fine tune it a little bit. It is very raw right now. I
Really?
feel like there's an opportunity to learn from listening to you and listening
Oh,
to others that do podcasts, that I can pick up tips or hints or, oh, I like the way that he does that or that she does that. So hopefully someday it will it'll be worthy to be alongside with everyone else.
I mean, everybody has their own beginning, right? And so when they
Mhm.
start their podcast, I've had my beginning, as I mentioned before, and I struggled to just ask the next question. I think I'm like, what's the next question? And I always listen back as I didn't listen. I was just caught up in the moment, right? And so of getting just having that person, and there were a couple people actually that I was very nervous. Like I would literally write down all the questions, but I would never ask the questions. But then now I don't even write any questions. I just listen. I just ask the next question, and then just allow that conversation to flow. So I mean, I guess the advice is just keep going. Uh,
Thank you.
I think when you do a podcast, people like to see the evolution. When you started at episode 1, and then
Mhm.
up until how many episodes you had now?
Hey everybody, if you are enjoying the podcast so far, please consider liking this video and also subscribing to the Not Ultra Classified Podcast YouTube channel so you can be notified for future videos. Also, please check out the Medical Coding Geek YouTube channel, where I also post videos on the medical coding, CDI, and HIM community. Also, check out medicalcodinggeek.com, where we offer a lot of services, including our Facebook groups. You can go to medicalcodinggeek.com/services. Check out our Facebook groups, including Medical Coding Geeks, the RHIT and RHIA exam support group, the CDI network. We have a marketplace where you can sell and buy your books. We also have the CEU hit list. If you're interested in free CEUs, I release a monthly list of free CEUs that I find on the internet. Also, you could follow us on social media, Not Also Classified. Everything is at NEC Podcast. For Medical Coding Geek, it's at MED Coding Geek. You could find us on Facebook, Instagram, and we are also on TikTok. If you are listening to this episode, please make sure to subscribe and rate our show on Apple Podcasts. All the ratings and the reviews help our show get noticed. Also, I wanted to take a moment to promote our partners. You could check them out at medicalcodinggeek.com/partners. They include the Haugen Consulting Group, RadRx, Project Resume, Renowned Talent, and so much more. And of course, you could find me, Brian Cui. My last name is spelled CUI on LinkedIn. So without further ado, let's return back to the show.
I don't even know. I would have to ask my producer. So awful. I should know.
Well, let me ask this question a different way. When did you first start the podcast?
We started the podcast, I think, in July.
Okay, of this year.
Yeah,
Okay.
or June of this year. I
June
think
of this year, and then what you've done? You said every 2 weeks, so June.
It was every week, and that got to be a little too much for me.
Yeah. Mm.
And just not enough time. So then we took the month of August off because I thought we would be done with this building,
Right.
But it wasn't. It didn't happen. So we had to
Yeah.
go back to the dining room table. But yeah, we took the month of August off, and I decided we're going to do it every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
It's easier for me to do it that way. And in 2 weeks' time, lots happens in our industry.
Yes.
So either CMS is putting out something, or we've got a new code, or of course, in the end of the year we have all of our rollouts.
Mm-hmm.
But I also take from what I'm working on at the time. So if I was working on an audit, and that particular group had a problem with modifier 51 and 59, and I found that I was repeating myself over and over and over again, I thought, oh, this would be something good to talk about, because
like a little vent session.
Right. Let me tell you about modifier.
There's one thing that I do. Oh, geez. So By the way, I'm getting my camera here. Jeez. So I use this little camera here, right? And so I work over on this side. This is my front. This is in front of my house, and there's a window right here. So I'm doing I do denials, right? I do the denials, right? So for the payer, and because my background is in CDI, I scrutinize the CDI query a lot, especially if it's included in the medical record. And I would look at it and I'm like, wait a second, and sometimes as I always say, there are people who create queries that result in denials. And so every time I see it, I just grab the camera and I'm like, oh my, and I don't give any information out, but I would just tell the story of like, what's going on here? Like, why am I picking up this camera? Why do I feel this way? And I would explain it. So like I already have like a bunch of them from September that I still have to release on YouTube. And there was one that I was on the, what is it, Alan Frady's podcast, Coder versus CDI, and I brought it up to him, and that got him on the edge of his seat, and he started started asking a bunch of questions. I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna release it. I'm gonna tag you, so you can watch it, because if it frustrated me, and there was like 3 more that frustrated me, I think you just find it interesting.
I smack my forehead a lot when I'm reading documentation. No, you did not write that in the documentation. Or where did this diagnosis come from? There's nowhere, anywhere that there's remotely going to support this diagnosis.
That's right.
You have to ask, where did it come from?
That's right. Yeah. I said, I have this energy. So I'm like, okay, I'm going to just put it in there. Rather than just empty space and nobody listens to me because nobody's here anyways, I might as well give it to a YouTube audience and have them listen, so that's the reasoning of all of that YouTube. So
awesome.
Here's the next question then. So you're starting a podcast. You do video, right? So does it go to YouTube or?
It does. It goes to YouTube, and it streams on LinkedIn and Facebook.
Oh, nice. Yeah. And you do it live, or is it pre-recorded?
I do it live.
Do you?
Yeah.
And what do you use for your streaming? I'm just curious.
Restream.
Okay.
Yes.
It's kind of like similar to StreamYard or all of those things. Okay.
Yeah. It just links all of those social medias together, and it's just one release. And
then it's mostly just you, right? Or do you have guests?
I haven't had any guests yet. It was just me kind of going over, some of these things. And I've also been told that I might be giving away too much information. So yes, after my dinner the other night, when I was talking with some other consultants out there, and they said, Christine, you got to dial it back a little bit. Oh, so sorry. I just wanted to be helpful.
Yeah. Don't give away the sauce, the secret sauce.
Exactly. I think that was the exact thing that was said.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Please stop. Okay, no problem. So yeah, that's. But I want to have more people. I did speak for Ozark Coding, so I had Jennifer McNamara just do a shout out about her summit that she did recently, and then Kimberly Williams, Jolivette Williams, she also had a colloquium recently, so she came on and did a shout out for that too.
Okay.
And but I haven't gotten into interviewing anybody yet. I want to kind of fine tune me before I bring more into it.
Yeah.
So maybe someday I'll call you.
I mean,
you want to be on my podcast?
Sure, why not? I don't. If it gives me an opportunity to talk instead of these 4 walls, I mean, I'm game, But I think, when I listened to, you and Stacy on that episode, I think from a week ago, again, you have chemistry, right? And I listened to you with me now. I'm like, yeah, I think you're ready for interviewing, because the way, I guess you have the same way, you know how to let it flow. The conversation flow, and it'll work as long as the other person is doing the same thing and they catch on. You have good chemistry, then you have a great podcast episode. Because when I can't believe we're still talking about Stacy, but when she and I know you're listening,
she does that. But listen, she does that, right?
Yeah, she has that effect on us, right?
Yeah.
So when I'm gonna tell you, Stacy, when she first created it, right? I gave her the name and all of that stuff. I
Yeah.
said, okay, are you gonna do any interviews? She says, no. It's just gonna be me. And then all of a sudden I start seeing her get some interviews. I'm like, I guess that doesn't work then. So she's just, I guess, when you bring in people, it's just nice to, as you say, bounce off ideas off each other. And I think, again, as I mentioned, like with the comedians, it's great because you see the chemistry. And I think that's what a lot of professionals, regardless if it's in healthcare or not, maybe in the lawn business, whatever, I could care less, where people from the same industry are just talking and then conversing and just having a good time. I think that's the point of it all.
Absolutely. Because we feel it. We've been there and we feel it and we know.
Yes.
And what worked for you, what worked for me.
Yes. Right. And I think going back to the secret sauce, right? So before we wrap, so when I you can only release so much. As I mentioned before, I've had guests where they tell me things and then later on they don't want it on the podcast. I'm like, oh, okay. I guess they reveal too much, don't reveal out that secret sauce.
Right.
But there is a way, and I will, because you say you have an entrepreneurial mind, you apply that aspect with your podcast, because if there's too much secret sauce, you want them to pay for the secret sauce,
Right.
That would lead to webinars, that would lead to,
right.
consulting services, like, hey, if you want more information, if you want the secret sauce, I think that's what you want to add into your podcast episode. If you want the secret sauce, go to.
I've been talking to my producer because I think she actually said that to me, not the secret sauce, but she did say, like, why don't you just give them a little bit and then bring them to a webinar or bring them to do a consulting service or something. And I'm like, oh, okay. She's like, sometimes people pay for this information.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I think what a lot of people, well, there is a, I don't know, there is a, I don't want to say confusion, but there is a mix up between doing a webinar, right, and doing a podcast episode. And when I think of podcast episode, I don't think webinar. I don't think slides. I don't think whatever. I think of this unstructured, no question, just jump on the microphone and talk. That's what I've always thought podcasts would be. But then when I guess, I don't know, I've heard some podcasts where it's very structured, but sometimes people like that. But that's not podcasts, that's webinars. But then people turn webinars into, they turn podcast episodes into email captures. You got to sign up to listen to the podcast episode. Yeah. And I said, well, that's not a podcast episode. That's just a webinar. So, the idea of webinars is capturing information. So that way you send them out, marketing, blah, 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 blah. So that's where I see, the mix up, but the idea is still there.
We did put together that when you sign up to do my podcast, it's through Eventbrite. It's $0. It doesn't cost anything. And it wasn't to bring people in, but I need it to go on my calendar. If it doesn't go on my calendar, it doesn't happen. So thinking about that with other people was, some people are like me and they need to have that blocked off on their calendar where their 15-minute warning comes up. Okay, the podcast is coming on, so you can listen to it.
Oh, because it's live. And yours is live. That's
right. And then they can listen to it afterwards. You record it and it's available afterwards, but it is live and we're just chatting. So we're trying to think of how to give people that warning there so that it's coming up, and if they want to stop during the day, and it's Thursday morning, 10 o'clock, it's not, so it is, you do have an opportunity to stop there and just listen for a few minutes and see what's going on, what I have to say. And so we do have them sign up for it, but not right. No, then it, my producer will go through and she'll put it on all the social medias. Miss today's, then you can capture it here.
Right. Yeah.
That's you feel like it.
No, I think you make a good point because it's live.
Yeah.
That's one of the aspects, because I think when I did when I started the YouTube, again, I would create the content, and then I did the premiere right? I would do the premiere, but I think I'm doing it wrong. Because I would just schedule it, but then nobody's there. But I need to do what you did, is like create the events.
Yeah.
Come to my premiere and get a, whatever, watch it for some reason. That's how I see it, that because of yours is live. Now, because your event is live, like how is it different from like what we're doing now? This is going to be pre-recorded, it's going to be edited. Like how, like, because you're on the spot, I'm sure it's the same thing as speaking, but is it the same way as speaking, or what's the difference? Or how do you feel when you do it live?
Well, I like my topics, and I feel very excited. I get really excited very easily.
You hype yourself up for it.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, let's talk about the new code that came out for low back pain. Oh my God, low back pain. Everybody deals low back pain. Let's talk about low back pain. So I get really excited. It's only 30 minutes.
Okay.
And I know I can talk for a lot longer than that.
Yeah.
So it really is just like, okay, let's make sure that we're just talking about the important stuff at this moment. And whatever happens. Sometimes there's that moment of, oh, I can't remember what that is. But this just reminds people that I'm human, just like they are.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not anything spectacular. I'm just like you. I'm working my job here. And I am going to have one of those brain farts. I'm going to, it's going to happen. So I think that that's the part of the live that just, I want everybody to know that I'm real. I'm just like you.
Yes.
And if I can do it, you can do it. If you need help, I want to be approachable. I want you to email me. I want you to reach out to me. Let's have a chat. Let's see how I can help you. And if it's something that is easy to do, easy to help you with, a yes or no, or here, go read the guidelines, right? Then that's what I'll do. But if it's something more, I'll say, well, this probably needs to be an engagement where we can look deeper into this and really, see what's going on there. But I want people to know that I'm just like them. I get up every day and go to work and have my job, and not so far away that they can't reach me.
That's right. I think you hit it right on the button. Is the word real. We need more real people, right? Not just because when people say, oh, you're like for some people, oh, you're an internet celebrity. I'm like, I'm no internet celebrity. I'm just the guy who wanted to talk with the other people, and people.
And everybody happens to know who you are.
Yeah. And so like, I'm like, okay, I'm just, what you get here is what you'll get in real life. When you contact me for help, or if you want to ask a question, I will give you the same amount of energy as I'm giving you here in the podcast. Now, my wife though, she's like, you don't do that when you you don't do that when you stop recording. You're a totally different guy. I'm like, yeah, because you're my wife. You're this is the I'm not that I don't want to say this is fake, but it's like I need to have a certain amount of energy to do this versus trying to be relaxed. When I'm relaxed, I'm just,
for me, this is where I can channel that energy, because if not, I'm just like I'm that little rubber ball. I'm pinging off the walls. I've got ideas and thoughts, and I'm working stuff, and I get so very excited about everything that I do. That's one thing people would say. People that know me, when I feel very passionate about it, I get so giddy and excited, and I can't wait to tell you about it. And so having the podcast is really nice to channel that, as opposed to just being that rubber ball bouncing all through the room.
Yeah.
So
it doesn't go anywhere. It just stays in your four walls, right? So that's the idea. Like, let it release it somewhere, and then I think the next step after you release it is relatability. You're real. As a result of that, people can relate, and that's how you create connection. And that's what's it's going to happen with your podcast. It's happened to mine. When you just be real, that's all it is.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, geez, what time is it? All right. So we've gone. I'm not going to go 3 hours. All right. So I'm not going to go 3 hours. So let's wrap it up.
Okay.
Again, Christine, thank you for being on the podcast. It was great picking your brain on how you break down topics, how you try to explain how you got it. I think that's the idea. And when you tell me you got it, I'm like, can you explain further? And I wanted to dig deeper, open those doors. And I think I have a good idea. It's very similar to mine, but with your entrepreneurial spirit, I think that's what makes it work, right? So let me ask you these last two questions. The first question is, what does the future hold for you?
Well, at some point, I'd like to retire. Not anytime in the near future, but yeah, that is kind of the goal.
Yeah.
But the future is I'm just riding this out. I'm seeing where we're going with this. I do love this industry. I think I shared with you, I've always worked in this industry, and nothing else has ever caught my attention or my passion. So I look forward to everything that we're doing. I look forward to the changes that are happening in this industry. I look forward to more people getting involved in this industry. I think that's kind of what I'm looking forward to.
Right.
Yeah.
Riding the
to
wave,
motivate
right?
more people. Yeah. Ride that wave. Exactly.
Yeah. Just continue riding it. Yeah. I see what you're doing. Yeah. Anything new with the podcast, or just going to stay the same, or you said you wanted to involve guests?
I think I am going to bring guests on in the, maybe at the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
When we start our next season, and we'll start doing that, bringing people on. And I've made so many wonderful connections in the last couple of years that I have people now that I can call and say, hey, I would love to hear you talk with me about whatever it is, modifier 51.
Yeah.
or whatever the topic is that's coming up in the so I think maybe next year we'll definitely start having some people on to the podcast, and yeah, that's going to be fun.
Sounds good. Now, I forgot to mention the reason why what sparked me to connect with you too, aside from calling me Tony. I think what sparked it is I kept on seeing your podcast promoted on multiple groups. One of them being, I'm going to give a shout out to AAPC Orlando. I see. What's the name of your producer?
Alexis Combs.
I know it starts with an A.
Alexis Combs. Yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah, I just keep on seeing it on my feed. I'm like, wait a second. Here it is again. Alexis Combs. I'm like, oh my goodness, there it is. And I go to the next group, because every AAPC chapter that I speak with, I join their group,
Yes.
And I think every time I make it a habit, the same way when you connect with people, I make it a habit that if they invite me, I thank them, right? But I don't make the mistake of calling them Tony or group, right? But I always, what I always do is I always take a picture of this setup here. And I would always say, hey, thank you for having me. If there's anything, if you had any questions about whatever topic I talked about for the day, reach out to me. And so just kind of like a little bit of courtesy. But yeah, all those groups that I joined, I kept on seeing that post. I'm like, okay, there's something happening here that I need to connect. Like I was just drawn to the marketing of Alexis, and I'm like, okay, I need to connect with Christine and get her on the podcast, have her talk about this. And so
I got very lucky with her. Not only does she produce all the podcasts, but she's an amazing marketer and a great motivator. Like she does a great job of keeping me motivated, but I can't take all the credit. She actually has her own independent company as well, marketing. And so she works with some of the other big names in our industry as well. And she helps produce their events and a lot of their marketing material as well. So she just happens to live very close to me, and
okay.
So
that's what I wanted to ask: is how did you get connected with her? That was the one. I know we're at the end of the podcast, but I want to throw in that
through
question.
my son. So Alexis and my son, when they were younger, were in 4-H together.
Oh.
And so I actually had the pleasure of watching her grow up, and those were her passions, and she also has a very big interest in the coding world as well.
Oh, does she?
So I got to mentor her, but then, she was in college and doing her thing as well. And it just blended together. And one day she was like, I think I can help you make that better. And I said, oh, okay, I'm all for that. Yes, let's do that. So, so I get to spend a lot of time with her, but she also spends a lot of time with other people around and helping them out with their marketing. I'm really blessed.
Oh, very good. Very good. Well, shout out to her because that's what led to this podcast episode.
All right. I will definitely. I think I owe her a lunch now.
Yeah. So like, oh, well, without her, I wouldn't have caught my eye to go back. I'm like, oh wait, that's the LinkedIn message where she called me Tony, so I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
That lady. Now I remember. It is nice to go back to I always go back to LinkedIn message. I'm like, how did we connect? Oh, that lady.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, I will have you know that I double and triple check from now on when I send my personal messages. So they are definitely heartfelt.
Perfect. Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I got the genuine part.
Yeah.
I understood it, and we're all connected. Now let's get into the last question.
Okay.
What was it? How did I rephrase it? The one when we first started. What best words of advice could you give based on what you're going through now?
Network, meet people, talk to people, take advice when it's given to you. That's a great way to go. And network, meet people, ask questions, find solutions, read the guidelines.
Awesome.
Those are all my key things.
medicalcodinggeek.com